What would you say to someone who might make the argument that focusing a lot on being excellent isn't very spiritual? Maybe it's like it's too worldly. Or do you think that sometimes even the church can get a reputation for lacking excellence and write it off as more spiritual flow, grace, to not pay too much attention to that? Does that make sense? Like,
100%.
what would you say to somebody that would make that argument? Like, oh, it's just too worldly to focus on excellence.
It's a light argument that I'd say you're going to have to go toughen up your argument, because it's very light, because I think the weight of Scripture shows excellence, right? From the details of the Old Testament tabernacle to the temple. You don't see it as much in the New Testament in terms of like buildings and fixtures and stuff, but there's an excellence that moves even through the New Testament. We cited some of those verses. And so the big question to me is, okay, so what do you want? You want the opposite of excellence? So let's just be mediocre and walk in mediocre environments and mediocre things. You don't do that at your home. Imagine if the government said, why don't we just have mediocre roads everywhere? And,
Good point.
we don't want to be excellent in that. I think church leaders have to defend their spirits, number one, against that kind of posture, because then you can start swinging the pendulum toward accepting things that don't honor God. To me, this is about stewardship and a return of worship to God as working unto the Lord, presenting atmospheres that honor the Lord. So in my opinion, it's just a weak argument. Now you can go
You can make any teaching extreme, right?
Right. Yep. So
I think that to your point about the tabernacle and the temple being in the Old Testament, you could also say, the book of Hebrews says Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Right. So if it mattered to God in the Old Testament, the tabernacle, the temple, the details, the finishes, I think it matters in the New Testament.
Yeah.
Of course, we are the temple, right? You could say, so then you have to go, and if we're the temple, then we ought to be making sure we're taking care of our bodies and all that kind of stuff too. So excellence is all around.
Yeah.
I do think, like Wayne, it's a weak argument. But some people do excuse sloppiness with spirituality. Yeah. And they think somehow, the Lord knows my heart. We'll get it better next time. And there's all these different excuses that we could make. Let's just try to do it right. I mean, I think that honors God. You know?
I agree.
Yep.